I'm the kind of person who keeps spreadsheets for fun. Retirement projections, mortgage amortization, kids' college fund, color-coded, backed up, printed in a folder my wife, Marlene, teased me about for years. Control freak, she'd say, kissing my cheek as if it was charming. I liked being the calm one. I liked knowing where every dollar went because my dad didn't, and we lost the house when I was 16. So when my brother Kenny called me last spring, laughing like he'd won the lottery, I almost hung up on him. Kenny's a fisherman, licensed, local, the kind of guy who wakes up at 3 a.m. because the weather feels right. He's not reckless, but he's impulsive in a way that makes me itch. "You're not gonna believe what I pulled up," he said. "I snagged something on the north side of Lake Briar. Thought it was a log. It's a dam chest." I said, "A cooler?" "No, like old. Iron bands, rotten wood. And inside," he paused, savoring it, "jewelry. A lot of it. Looks antique. Like museum stuff." My stomach did that little drop it does when a number doesn't reconcile. Treasure stories are for other people. But Kenny wasn't a liar. And money always finds a way to become real. We met in his garage that night. Kenny had the chest on a tarp, the wood dark and swollen like it had been breathing underwater for a century. When he pried the lid open, the smell hit first. Lake muck and old metal and something faintly sweet, like damp cedar. Inside were velvet pouches that had turned to sludge, and beneath them, gold that still caught the light. Brooches with tiny seed pearls, a necklace with a cameo, rings that looked too delicate to survive a dishwasher. There was a heavy pocket watch with an engraving I couldn't read without my glasses. Kenny watched my face like a kid showing a report card. "Tell me that's not worth something." "I don't know," I said, even though my brain was already doing math. Appraisal costs, taxes, legal risks. I was the boring adult in the room by instinct. He lowered his voice. "Before you go all law and order, I didn't steal it. I pulled it up. It's salvage." "Salvage laws aren't." I started, but he cut me off. "I told Marlene," he said, like it was nothing. "She said you'd help me do it right." That was the first pinprick of irritation. Marlene and Kenny weren't close, not really. She was polite at holidays, the way you are with a spouse's sibling. But she'd taken his call. She'd given him advice. I didn't understand what that meant until later. Marlene was waiting at the kitchen table when I got home, laptop open, mug of tea going cold. She looked up with that "we need to talk" face, but her eyes were bright. "Kenny showed me pictures," she said. "It's gorgeous." "It's also a legal nightmare," I said, putting my keys down harder than I meant to. "If it's stolen property, if it's tied to a shipwreck, if it belongs to an estate." "There aren't shipwrecks in Lake Briar," she said, smiling like I was being dramatic. "It's a lake. It's history," I snapped. Then I softened because I don't like being sharp. "Look, he needs to report it. Authorities, historical society, something." Marlene reached across the table and touched my hand. Her fingers were warm, steady. "We can do it smart. He can get it appraised first. Quietly. If it's worth, say, 50,000, he'll need help. If it's worth more, we should plan." The word "we" landed wrong. Kenny's find wasn't our find. Our money was ours, and we'd spent 15 years building it carefully. I pulled my hand back, not violently, just enough to make a point. "Plan for what?" I asked. She shrugged. "For taxes. For decisions. For opportunities." I remember thinking she sounded like one of those investment podcasts she half-listened to on her commute. I chalked it up to excitement. I told myself she was thinking of Kenny, of helping family. I wanted to believe that. We drove to an appraiser in the city 2 days later. Kenny insisted I come because "you're the only one with a suit and a brain." Marlene came too, in a navy blazer like she had an interview. The appraiser was a woman in her 60s with white hair pulled back tight. The kind of person whose hands look clean even when she's wearing gloves. She laid each piece on black cloth, peering through a loop, making little humming noises. "This is mid-1800s, she said about a bracelet. "Good condition. Real gold." Kenny's knee bounced so hard the chair squeaked. After an hour, she sat back. You're not going to like my answer, because it's complicated. My mouth went dry. Complicated usually meant expensive. It's valuable, she said. Depending on provenance, auction, market, 6 figures. Potentially more. Kenny let out a sound like a laugh and a sob at the same time. But, she continued, holding up the pocket watch, this engraving is a name, and this crest. She tapped a tiny shield. This looks like it belonged to the Hollis family. They were prominent around here. Their estate has a foundation. There may be claims. Kenny's face fell. So I just give it back? I'm saying, she said carefully, you need a lawyer before you sell anything. If you try to move it privately, you could end up with charges. Marlene leaned forward. If it goes to auction with the right story, could it be 7 figures? The appraiser's eyes flicked to her. If the story is confirmed, yes. That was twist number 1 for me, not the value, but my wife asking about 7 figures like it was a menu option. On the drive home, Kenny talked nonstop, paying off his boat, fixing the roof, maybe finally taking his kids to Disney like he'd promised. I listened, nodding, but my mind was already splitting into risk columns. Legal, ethical, financial. Marlene sat in the back seat because Kenny's truck had that bench seat thing, and she kept looking down at her phone, thumbs moving. I asked, who are you texting? In a tone that sounded casual but wasn't. Just my sister, she said quickly. She loves antique jewelry. I'm sending her pictures. I didn't love that. Not because I'm possessive, but because news spreads. Money spreads faster. Still, I told myself it didn't matter. We weren't doing anything wrong if we did it right. That night, Kenny called again. I found a guy, he said. Friend of a friend. He buys old stuff. Cash. No, I said immediately. Absolutely not. He said he can make the problem go away, Kenny muttered. No lawyers. No foundations. Marlene, standing in the doorway, shook her head at Kenny through me as if she could be seen. Tell him no, she mouthed. I did. I felt oddly proud of her in that moment, like she was choosing the moral path with me. But later, after she showered, her phone lit up on the nightstand. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just reached over to plug my charger in and saw the preview. Tell Kenny the offer still stands. We can route it. We can route it. My hand froze. The screen dimmed. I sat there in the dark with my heart doing that slow, heavy thump like something was wrong with the plumbing. When Marlene came out, towel around her hair, I asked, as evenly as I could, who texted you about routing an offer? She blinked once. What? I repeated it. Calm. Controlled. She smiled like I'd misunderstood. Oh, my sister. She was joking. Like, route it to me. I let it go. Denial has a soft, warm blanket feeling when you're tired. The lawyer I hired wasn't cheap. $250 an hour, and he talked like every sentence was a contract clause. But he confirmed what the appraiser hinted. If the Hollis Foundation could establish ownership, Kenny could be obligated to surrender the jewelry. There was a chance of a finder's fee. There was also a chance of nothing but legal bills. Kenny cursed in my kitchen, hands on his head. So I'm screwed. No, I said. It's just not a lottery ticket. It's a process. Marlene poured him coffee, too sweet, like she always did for guests. You deserve something, she said softly. You found it. Her tone made Kenny look at her like she was his teammate. I didn't like that either, but I couldn't articulate why without sounding paranoid. We agreed to do it above board. The lawyer contacted the foundation. An appointment was set. The jewelry went into a safe deposit box in Kenny's name, at my bank, because Kenny didn't trust his own bank and I had the good one. I paid the first retainer on my credit card, planning to reimburse myself when Kenny got his fee. Those were the facts, the clean version. A week later, I logged into our joint account and saw a transfer I didn't recognize. $8,000 to a company name that looked like a dental office. I clicked. It wasn't dental. It was a consulting firm. I asked Marlene at dinner, between bites, like it was nothing. What's this? She didn't look up. Oh, it's for Mom. Her mother had been in and out of doctors for years. Medical bills were the one thing I didn't argue about. Is she okay? She needs a specialist, Marlene said. It's complicated. Everything was complicated now. Money makes liars of ordinary people. The foundation meeting happened in a bright conference room with framed photographs of old lakefront houses. A man in a tweed jacket shook Kenny's hand like he was congratulating him and accusing him at the same time. They brought in an archivist who had documents and that kind of excitement historians get. The jewelry matched inventory from an 1870s burglary. Hollis heirloom stolen during a fire, presumed lost. The chest, she said, likely got tossed into the lake in a panic. Kenny looked like he might throw up. I felt a weird relief. At least there was an answer, a story with an ending. The foundation attorney said, "We appreciate your honesty. There is a statutory finder's fee process. We'll work with your counsel." Kenny exhaled. "So I'm not getting arrested?" "No," the attorney said, "but you can't sell it, and we need to take possession for preservation." We signed forms. Kenny agreed to hand it over after cataloging under supervision. Felt like the end of the crisis. On the way out, Marlene fell a step behind me and Kenny. I turned and saw her talking quietly with the tweed man, her hand on his arm like she'd known him longer than 10 minutes. When I came closer, they separated, both smiling too quickly. In the car, I asked, "What was that about?" "Nothing," Marlene said. "He asked if I was related to the Hollises. I said no." Twist number 2 wasn't what she said. It was how she said it, rehearsed like she'd practiced in the mirror. That night, I checked the safe deposit box access log online because I'm me. It showed an entry 2 days earlier. Someone had accessed it. Not Kenny. Not me. Marlene's name was listed as an authorized signer. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. Authorized signer meant paperwork. It meant a signature. Mine or something pretending to be mine. I didn't confront her right away. I wish I could say it was strategy. It was fear. If I blew up the comm, I didn't know what would spill out. So I acted normal for 2 days, the way you do when you smell smoke but don't see flames. I called the bank and asked how Marlene was added. The woman sounded confused. "We have the form," she said. "It's signed by you. Notarized." I asked for a copy. When it hit my email, my throat tightened. The signature looked like mine if you squinted. The loops were right, the slant, but the pressure was wrong, like a kid tracing a parent's name. Marlene walked in while I was staring at it. She saw my face and stopped. For a second, we were both perfectly still, like animals caught in headlights. "I can explain," she said immediately. I kept my voice low. "Did you forge my signature?" Her eyes flashed. "I didn't have a choice." "Choice about what?" She swallowed. I could see her pulse in her neck. Kenny was going to do something stupid. Sell it to that guy. I needed access in case I had to stop him. "That's not how you stop someone," I said, and my hands started shaking under the table. I tucked them into my lap, like I could hide the tremor. She leaned forward, urgent. "You don't understand. We needed leverage." "We?" She hesitated, and in that hesitation I felt something crack inside me. Not a loud break. A quiet one, like a hairline fracture you only notice when the whole thing fails later. I asked again, slower. "Who is we?" Marlene looked down. "My sister's husband, Daniel. He's in finance. He said there was a way to make sure Kenny didn't walk away with nothing." I pictured Daniel. Slick hair, always talking about opportunities. The guy who once asked me at Thanksgiving how much equity I had in the house. I'd laughed it off then. Twist number 3 was realizing Marlene hadn't been excited about jewelry. She'd been excited about leverage. I demanded she call Kenny and tell him what she'd done. She refused, saying it would panic him. That word, panic, was rich, coming from someone who'd forged a signature. So I called Kenny myself. He answered on the second ring, out of breath. "Yeah. Did Marlene add herself to your safe deposit box?" I asked. Silence. Then, "She said you did." "I did not." Kenny cursed, long and ugly. "She told me you were on board." that it was all family, that you trusted her. I never said that, I replied, and my voice stayed calm even though my face felt hot. Control is a habit. He exhaled hard. Look, man, I already let her take something. My stomach turned cold. What do you mean, take something? She said there were pieces that weren't on the Hollis list, Kenny said. That the foundation would claim everything anyway, so we should keep a few. She took like a ring, a brooch. She said she'd store them safe. My jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. I could taste metal like I'd bitten my tongue. Kenny, I said carefully, that's theft. She said it was our finder's fee, he shot back. She said you agreed. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just felt my vision narrow, like the world was a tunnel. That night, Marlene admitted she'd taken items. Just a couple, she said. And only because the foundation. Because Daniel, I corrected. Her eyes filled, not with sadness, but with anger. Because you think being righteous pays the bills. That line hit harder than anything, because it wasn't entirely wrong. We'd been fine, but not comfortable. College looming. My own mother's assisted living starting soon. Marlene had been clipping coupons in secret, like it embarrassed her. Money doesn't just buy things. It buys narratives. She'd been writing a different one than I knew. Here's the part that makes me look worse. And I deserve that. I didn't call the police. I didn't call the foundation. I told myself I was protecting Kenny. Protecting Marlene. Protecting my kids from the shame of their mother being charged with fraud. But the real reason was simpler. If the foundation found out pieces were missing, the finder's fee could vanish. And that finder's fee had started to feel irrationally, like it belonged to us. Like maybe this was the universe giving us a break for once. So I made a plan. I told Marlene we'd return the items anonymously. No one needs to know, I said. I heard myself saying it and hated myself, but relief flooded me anyway. A false resolution, smooth, clean, tempting. Marlene nodded too quickly. Okay, yes, thank you. For a week, things were weird but quiet. She cooked my favorite meals. She touched my arm in passing. She said, I'm sorry, in a small voice. I started to believe we could patch it. Then my credit card alert pinged while I was in a meeting. Purchase, $12,400. Jewelry store. My mouth went cotton dry. I texted her. What is this? She replied, call me. I stepped out into the hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. When she answered, her voice was breathy, like she'd been running. It's handled, she said. Handled how? I asked. We sold the ring, she said, and I felt the floor tilt. Just one. Daniel has a buyer. It's temporary. We'll buy it back later and return it. You can't buy back an antique ring you sold under the table, I said through clenched teeth. You don't understand, she whispered. I had to. That phrase again. Had to. As if necessity turns wrong into right. The truth came out in pieces, like pulling thread from a sweater and watching the whole thing unravel. Marlene had been sending money to her mother, yes, but not for a specialist. Her mother had co-signed a loan for Marlene's sister years ago, Daniel's business venture. The venture failed. The loan was in default. Their mother's fixed income couldn't cover it. Daniel was pressuring them, threatening bankruptcy, hinting at legal consequences. And Marlene, my organized, responsible wife, had been quietly trying to plug that hole. For months, using our emergency fund first, then credit, then lines of credit I didn't know she'd opened. I found out about the lines of credit when a letter arrived addressed to me, congratulating me on my new account. My name, my social, not my signature. I sat at the kitchen counter with that letter, hands trembling so badly the paper crackled. When Marlene came in, I didn't bother with calm. How many? I asked. She set her purse down slowly. It's not what you think. How many accounts did you open in my name? She covered her face with both hands. 2. Balances. She whispered, 88,000. My ears rang. I could hear the refrigerator hum like it was the only stable thing in the room. I thought about my spreadsheets, my neat columns, my illusion of control. Twist number 4 wasn't the debt. It was realizing my wife hadn't betrayed me for greed. She'd betrayed me because she believed I'd choose my principles over her family. And she was probably right. I called Daniel. I told myself I would be civil. He answered like he'd been expecting me. "Hey man," he said, warm as syrup. "Heard you found some history. You're using my wife to launder stolen property," I said flatly. He chuckled. "Launder. Cute word. Look, nobody's getting hurt. The foundation has insurance. Kenny gets a fee. Your family gets a little cushion. Everybody wins. My name is on 2 fraudulent loans," I said, and my voice shook. I hated that. "You forged my identity." "Relax," he said. "We can fix it. Once the finder's fee hits, we wipe everything. I'm trying to help you, not screw you." Help you? Like I should be grateful. I hung up and felt nausea roll through me, hot and sour. I went to the bathroom and stared at my face in the mirror. I looked older than I had a month ago. My eyes had that dull, startled look like after a car accident. Marlene stood behind me in the doorway. "He said the foundation will pay fast," she murmured. "Maybe 6 weeks. You're banking our marriage on 6 weeks," I said. She flinched. "Don't make it about that." But it was always about that. Money is never just money. It's fear and power and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. That night, I lay in bed listening to Marlene's breathing and realized I didn't know her. Or maybe I'd never wanted to know the parts that didn't fit my tidy narrative. Kenny called, frantic. The foundation had inventoried the jewelry and noticed discrepancies. Tiny marks where pieces had been nested. They weren't accusing yet, but they were asking questions. "They're gonna blame me," Kenny said. "I can't go to jail, man. I got kids." My first instinct was to fix it, to control it, to call the lawyer, to smooth it over. Instead, I felt something harden. I told Kenny the truth. All of it. The forged signature, the missing pieces, the sale. He went silent, then said in a small voice, "She did that." "Yeah," I said, and I could hear how tired I sounded. Kenny started crying. Full, quiet sobs. It's a humbling thing, hearing your brother cry like that, because you realize the collateral damage isn't theoretical. "I trusted her," he whispered. "I trusted you." "I know," I said, and shame burned behind my eyes. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the grain of the wood, following the lines like they could tell me what to do. I finally did what I should have done weeks ago. I called the lawyer and told him pieces were missing. He went very quiet, then asked, "Do you know who has them?" "I have a guess," I said. He told me in that careful lawyer voice that voluntary disclosure could help, that obstruction would not, that my name being forged was serious, but only if I treated it as serious. I ended the call and realized my calm had been complicity. Control can be another word for cowardice. Marlene didn't fight when I said I was going to the police. She just sank into a chair like her bones turned to sand. "If you do this," she said, voice flat, "we lose everything." "We already did," I replied. I expected tears. I expected pleading. Instead, she said something that still makes my skin prickle. "You think you're the victim," she said softly, "but you liked it. The idea of it. The finder's fee. You liked having something to solve, something to control. You didn't turn us in because you didn't want to lose the money." I opened my mouth and nothing came out, because it was true enough to hurt. She handed me a small velvet pouch from her purse. Inside was a brooch with seed pearls. "This is all that's left," she said. "Daniel has the rest. He says he can't get it back." "Where is he?" I asked. She shook her head. "He won't answer me anymore." There it was, the final collapse, quiet and mundane. Not a gunshot moment. Just a man not answering a phone. I reported the fraud. I reported the missing items. Kenny did too. The foundation suspended the finder's fee pending investigation. The police took statements like they were ordering coffee, calm and bored, because they'd seen families burn down over less. Marlene moved into her sister's guest room. Her sister wouldn't let her talk about Daniel in front of the kids, so Marlene called me at night, whispering, asking if I'd heard anything. I stopped answering. The legal aftermath is still unfolding, but the shape of it is clear. We're paying off debt that was taken in my name, because untangling it is a slow, expensive grind. Kenny might get a reduced fee someday, or he might get nothing. Daniel vanished, at least for now, leaving a trail of paperwork and promises like cigarette ash. Marlene's license at her job got flagged because of the fraud investigation. She's working part-time at a friend's office under supervision, like she's on probation. We're separated, not divorced yet, because divorce costs money we don't have and because part of me still wants a clean ending that doesn't exist. Sometimes, late at night, I open my spreadsheet folder. I update the columns with new numbers, new interest rates, new payment plans. My hands don't shake anymore. I'm functional again. That's what scares me. What sticks with me isn't the jewelry, or the lake, or even Daniel's smug voice. It's a small detail from that first night. The way Marlene said we should plan like she'd already started without me. Now, when I walk past the bank downtown, I swear I can smell that lake muck dampness for a second, like it's clinging to my clothes. I'll be fine, I tell myself. I can rebuild. I can control what's left. But some nights I wake up with my mouth dry and my heart thumping, and the only thing I can see is that almost matching signature on the bank form. My name, written by someone who knew me well enough to imitate me and didn't love me enough to stop.